I want an aardvark, 3 yards of shag carpet, and a pound of your best chocolate. Oh, the bear gets it with the guitar. Ah!
In Hostage Negotiator, one player takes on the stressful role of a negotiator working to save hostages by interacting with the game's abductor through a variety of conversation topics, all measured by certain cards of a deck that the player continually reconstructs through the game. Is it captivating? Let's find out here on Harebrained Games. So here we have the standard setup for Hostage Negotiator. Hostage Negotiator is a one-player game, so this is something you play solely by yourself. It's just you against the game, and that game takes on the personality of an abductor. Now here's how some of the pieces and components of the game. First off, this is your starting deck of cards. These are your negotiation cards. This is what you use and rely on to help calm down, ease, and eventually subdue the abductor while taking as many captured hostages and freeing them as possible. We'll get into this shortly after I explain the rest of the components. And these are the dice. You will grow to hate these. There's a 50% guaranteed chance of failure on everything you do. And then there's a partial ability to pay a little extra for success, and then there's 2 successes. Yeah, you definitely will find yourself hating these a lot. Each of these cards is a card that can be purchased with conversation points and added to your hand temporarily. Unlike many deck builders, these cards do not get added to your deck stack here in perpetuity. Instead, you will use them, and when you use them, if they cost anything at all, they go right back. So these are more like consumables, in that you buy them to use at the right time, and then they go back, and you must continually rebuy them. You're continually purchasing these cards. Anything that's free, you get with one caveat that, once again, we'll explain shortly when we do the gameplay session. Now, this is our actual abductor. There are 3 that come with the game. This is Donna Scarborough. Now, what's her beef? Well, she was passed over for tenure. See if I can get that right. And that was it. So she walks in with a Glock 23 or 2, and she wants what she wants, and she's going to hold her entire class hostage. Yeah, fine young lady. Where were these teachers when I was growing up? Anyway, so here's her set. She's got the 12 hostages here, and this is the central brain of the game here. This is where you're going to keep track of your state and the state of mind of the abductor herself. In this case, threat level, as it increases, you roll less dice. So the calm get calmer, and the angrier get angrier, and you pay the price the more angry she gets. At a certain point, when she gets here, every time that this meter would go up, she just starts killing off hostages. Whereas if you calm her down enough, every time that you can reduce the threat level, she actually lets some of the prisoners go. So that's that with her. Now, every single one of the hostage or abductors has an actual demand and an escape demand. Both of these need to be made known fairly quickly during the negotiation process. The reason for that is not directly that they do damage, but however, each and every one of these terror plot cards, one of which you must reveal and resolve at the end of each of your turns, often have additional painful events that occur if you have not determined the abductor's major demands. That's a big deal that you'll find out as you play the game really early on. Now we're going to go over one more thing, and that's conversation points, which you earn through your cards and spend. This is where you go up and down with the conversation points, and then you'll pay the price. Now some of these cards are minor extractions, bold lies, which hurt you on the track but give you conversation points, all the way up to this like kamikaze card, which is basically bring it. Save all these guys and take out the abductor, but that has a price as well. Here's the other 2 abductors that come with the game. Edward Quinn, who is upset that his son is not getting the proper care he needs at a hospital and is desperate to get some attention. And then Arcane Massaw, who's just basically a jerk. And that's it for the setup, and now we're going to talk about a little bit of the gameplay as we go through a given round or two and describe in vivid pictorial detail how you go about negotiating with Diane to free as many of the hostages as possible. Now, the winning conditions are she's basically subdued, captured, killed, and at least 50% of the hostages survive. That is the requirements. If for any reason more than half of them die, then you have lost. So that's that. If the abductor escapes, and that is possible, because there are certain cards that allow it to happen, you also lose. Also, the terror card set acts as a timer in that once these are gone and there are no more to draw, at that point you lose. So there's lots of ways to lose, but there are also possibilities for how to win. Now let's go through the gameplay example. Alright, we have arrived on the scene where Donna is holding 12 of her students hostage. The first thing we need to do is figure out which of these cards we're going to play. Now we get to decide up to the amount of cards how many we're going to play each turn. Why wouldn't we play them all? Because sometimes it pays to not. These also have bad things happen, not just good things. So it's kind of a snap judgment or a judgment call as to when and how you want to save these cards. Because if you save some of these cards for the next round, you might be in a better position during that round for the card to have a greater advantage. So we know that demands are very important, and so we're going to play this one first. This one costs nothing and says, what are your demands? That's pretty simple. So what we're going to do is roll as many dice as we can. Now, because the threat meter is on the 2, I'm going to roll 2 dice. I'm not into the 3 yet. I could have started and thought maybe I could, you know what, maybe let me try this first. Let me try this. Keep cool. Let's see if we can knock that threat level down where we can roll more dice. So I'm going to roll 2 dice right now, and they're going to be really good. Well, that wasn't the worst thing in the world. I have 1 success. 1 success means I drop the threat level down. Yay! Now I'm in the green, which means instead of 2 dice, I roll 3 dice. That is a huge, awesome thing. So, am I going to play another card? Well, I sure am. I want to reveal those demands so that they're not biting me every single time I'm taking a turn. I'm going to roll my dice again. If I get 2 successes, I get some serious good stuff. But I need at least 1 success. Ready? Oh Lord. 2 misses and 1 possible success. Now the 4, unlike the 5 or 6, which are instant successes, mean that I have to get rid of 2 cards in my hand to convert that to a success. Am I going to do it? I am, because I know how important it is to reveal a demand. Certain other times I would say, you know, I'm not going to go with that. But I also like to keep that calmness factor down. So I'm going to get rid of 2 cards that I don't think are really going to help me much. This one here I'm going to get rid of. And this one here, because I'm not going to try and reveal the second demand yet. So these are over here, and I'm going to call it a success. So what does that mean? It means I reveal one of the demands. I'm going to reveal the major demand. Fired. Fire the leadership. This is now revealed. Is this good or bad? Well, it's both. I can, because I understood her demand, make that concession of her. I can spend any 4 and get 8. In other words, big bonus. If I can accrue at least 4 conversation points, I can get 8 that turn to spend. And that's a lot of conversation point power to buy some good cards. But what does that mean? Once that's done, this gets turned over, and this takes effect for the rest of the game, which means that because I conceded to her at the beginning of every single conversation phase, I'm going to lose 2 conversation points. So it's a give me something cool now, knowing I'm going to pay the price later. Now you get, as the hostage negotiator, get to decide when this goes into play. Or when it's activated. So perhaps in this case I would wait till closer to the end of the game when I really needed some conversation points and I felt like I could weather the storm for a couple more turns. That's when I'd use it. But the most important thing is I'm halfway to figuring out all of her demands to help me out. Now I have 2 cards left. Am I going to play them? I am not. Because I am not at this point feeling too awfully good about this when I could go into the next turn. Now I don't, or do I? No, I actually have a plan, and I want to follow through on it. I'm actually going to play one card. This is a rare moment. I'm going to play this card and attempt to get some conversation points. I got one success. That is good. That means that I get 2 conversation points to spend in the next phase. And that is done. I'm not going to try for any more. I'm going to keep it the way it is. So this portion of my turn is over. Now I go into the spin phase. Now in the spin phase, all of the cards I used this turn are set aside. They're out for an entire turn before they come back into my hand. Now they're free. I get them all back. They don't cost me anything. But I do have to understand that when I use one of the cards that are 0 cost, they're taken out for a game. So I could basically, if I don't have any money, wind up having a very scant turn the next time if I use up all my cards at once. When and where and how to play your cards is more important than their outcomes sometimes in this game. So, what do I got to spend on? Well, I know exactly what I'm going to buy. I could buy any of these 2-point cards, and they're good in certain spots and give me some value, but these rerolls I really like. I can reroll 1 die, which gives me even more die power. And I'm going to buy both of these because I really want to get conversation points. And I might use 1 or both, who knows. But that cost me 2. My 2 points are done. And that's that. So I have basically done a decent first turn. Now, here's the thing. The terror plot cards. We've got to reveal one of those and take our lumps. And it is, of course, the situation is worsening. So now I'm making her more agitated by adding more stress to her threat level track. And because there is an unrevealed demand, it's doubled. So now I'm down to 2 dice again, which is why I don't like these cards. And that's it. That's an entire turn. Now it's time to do it again. And we have these cards at our disposal. And I really only have one thing to do, and that's play small talk. So I'm only rolling 2 dice now because my threat level has gone up too high. Oh, look at that. Now I could discard and get a double, both of these cards. If I discard them, I could get the extra conversation point, but that actually doesn't make a whole lot of sense, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take my success and add 2 conversation points. Why would I not do this? Well, because at any time I can always discard any card in my hand to get another conversation point. So I could actually save a card if I wanted to, or I could go with the 2. Now, if I had anything that I was sure I wanted for 2, and I do, I'm gonna grab just stay calm. It only cost me 2. I know I'm gonna do that, so I'm gonna stay. This is the entire amount of my conversation part of this turn. And this is discarded. I still have these 2 cards in my hand, which I'm really hoping are going to come out in a big way for me later. So then I spend my money. I get my conversation starter. This goes away, but all of these cards come back into my hand. And now we reveal another terror. Please don't let it be bad. They almost all are. Don't even think about it. Choose 1 conversation card of the available area with a cost of 5 or greater and remove it from the game. Well, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards are pretty powerful, but some of them might be okay. So I'm just going to get rid of the 5 card. I'm coming to talk. Until the conversation ends, I would get 2 extra dice for any further cards. I think I can live without that. We'll see. Question is, can my hostages live without that? Alright, so now we have a choice to make, and that choice is, what are we going to do with all these beautiful cards? Well, the first thing I want to do is figure out my plan. I would like to reveal that second demand, so I'm going to give it a shot here. I'm going to roll 2 dice. Is it worth it? Do I re-roll? Do I use my re-roll, or do I actually just ditch? So I'm going to actually ditch this card and this card, and I'm going to make that into a success. And that means that I do reveal the second demand, and look what I get. When the last hostage leaves the hostage pool, make a threat roll. Add 1 die to the roll for each red terror card still in the deck. If the roll is failed, the abductor escapes. So I got to be real careful now and make sure. I mean, that ups the timetable on getting these hostages rescued, because when I rescue the hostages, I have to do it quickly. Yeah. 1 die. So basically I roll 1 die, and every terror card that I roll afterwards, I have to have at least 1 success, or else this escapes and I've lost. It's real easy to lose in this game. But I've now revealed all of the demands, which means I'm not going to get hit with additional painful terror card detriments. And that's that. Do I stay or do I go? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Well, I'm going to go ahead and try, for the sake of the game, small talk. I'm going to try to get some conversation points going here, just to show you a little bit about what happens. So, I'm going to roll. Oh, man. Now, if I fail this, this forces the conversation to end. My turn is done. But I do get a conversation point. Is it worth it? No, I'm going to play my reroll. Whew, that worked, and I have 2 conversation points. And that is excellent. So now I have 2 conversation points to spend, and I'm going to take one of my cards, and I'm going to flip it over to add another conversation point. And look at that. My turn is done. Now, what do? Well, remember, all of the cards that I use that are 0 cards are removed from play. I don't get them this turn, I get them back later, but all the other ones, which happens to be just 1, go back in. However, I've used this. It's done. If I'm going to use it again, I have to buy it again. And I'm going to pick up minor extraction. Why? Because this, if I succeed, will let me rescue a hostage. Of course, if I fail, well, she kills one. And that's that. Now let's look at the terror plot. Well, I'm instantly, that's a death. So basically one of my hostages has unfortunately been taken out. So that's not going to help me win the game. And it's always sad when a hostage dies. But because I don't have any unrevealed demands, I don't have to take this secondary pain. Alright, well, it's back to us to decide what to do. And I'm just going to go for it for the purposes of playstyle. Whether I do this in real life or not, I'm not going to say, but minor extraction. I want to save lives. 1 success and the opportunity to drop any 2 cards for a second success, which will get 2 of mine saved. And I'm going to do it. There you go. I'm going to ditch these 2 cards, turn that to a success, and now I have saved 2 hostages, which means I'm now ahead. 1 down and 2 are alive. I really wanted this to succeed because I didn't want to lose any more hostages, and I also didn't want her threat level to go up to the point where she's angry and killing hostages almost autonomously. And that's basically how the game goes. You're going to go until these hostages, until they're either in this pool or here, or they're in this pool here, which is bad. And this abductor lady here is either going to get captured or she's going to run free. Once again, remember that I could use my plot towards the end of the game to get 8 conversation points. And that's pretty nice when you have a card like this that basically lets me free 4 of them and take out the abductor. This is really kind of caps the negotiations quite nicely. So that's it for Hostage Negotiator. So let's go into my final thoughts and tell you whether I think the game is worth it or not. So what are my thoughts on Hostage Negotiator? Well, Hostage Negotiator, the premise of dealing with hostage situations and abductions can lead to some interesting reactions. Now, there were some that just couldn't see past the theme and found it just too disdainful to even take a look at. And to those people, I understand no one should ever play a game under duress or coercion because they simply must do for some other's cause. That said, those who were willing to look at this particular game found that after watching it and getting involved in it, that it was creative and engaging and thematic and clever. One of the things that Hostage Negotiator really aims to do and do well is that it, in the surrounding context of a hostage situation, it stays focused, narrowly focused on just the portion of interaction between the negotiator and the abductor. The rest of the pieces fall into place, so to speak. The victims, the threat track, the conversation point aspects, all of that feeds into this narrow, at the end of the day, drilling into the negotiator versus the hostage, understanding the psychology of what they want, how much to give them, how much to promise them, and such. And it does so in a great way. It does so in a sensible and realistic way. The abductors themselves, there are 3 that come in the main pack, have plausible contemporary impetus for their rationales for taking the extreme actions that they do. And while it changes the strategy from abductor to abductor, it doesn't change the objective, which is to save lives. Now, what are the things I like best about it? Well, the theme. The theme of Hostage Negotiator is woven into every aspect of its gameplay. You might hear that a lot, but here it really rings true. It's the importance of learning the demands and what makes the particular abductor tick, which does vary from game to game. And it also teaches you to hurry while not hurrying too much, in an odd and strange sense of irony. Hand management is unique in this game over others. If you expect it to be a deck builder, it is not. It is a deck renter, a deck leaser in some respects. And there's a tug of war that's constantly in progress in this game. You're always on the razor's edge, dancing back and forth to try and keep things at just the right level that you can slowly ease your way to freeing hostages or creating a situation where the abductor can be taken out in one fashion or another. One of the things about a game that relies on dice and luck, particularly when the dice here are so unforgiving, is that you have to have sufficient control. It is paramount to feel like this isn't just one giant crapshoot. And here, the game shines. The luck and the peril from the tarot cards are never introduced to you as a constant killing blow, but instead they're another burdensome piece of a particularly precarious puzzle that you must continually try to solve and resolve to unlock the mentality of the abductor. Now, you may lose over and 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 over. But after the initial stages, the first few games when you're flailing about and just kind of like probably making the mistakes on both extremes, you'll be able to play the game and with the choices you make, rewind back to various crossroads moments when you could look and go, yeah, if I'd done this differently or taken that risk here instead of that risk at this time, I probably could have swung the odds back in my favor. And that's the hallmark of a good game, of a good solo game particularly. You can lose yourself in this game and really feel like you're making an impact and really getting involved in the theme and into the situation. Each abductor varies in a radical enough way that you won't feel like it's just run-of-the-mill abductions, particularly the expansion abductor packs, which add quite a bit each one. Highly recommended to pick up at least one extra. That and also the achievements. When you're playing this game, on the back of the manual there are like achievement things that you can cross off as you're playing this game over and over. Certain crazy situations that you're able to pull off as well as playing the game itself. Now, what are some things that didn't go well? Well, this is a stressful game. It's a stressful game. It's a painful game. Imagine games like SOS Titanic, or to a smaller degree Friday, but not so much. It's painful to lose guys when you really see victims being killed. And sometimes you even have to make a choice that kind of coerces that situation. So if you're really into the theme that much, you may find it really weighing down on your soul. Remembering, of course, that it is just a game. There's kind of a written rule or unwritten rule kind of that every solo game has to be brutally difficult or else it's not worth it. And I don't necessarily adhere to that. I understand why, particularly for people that just really want to make sure that it's brutally difficult so that every victory is just a sweet, satisfying point. But I would much rather have games be brutally difficult by a choice and less so by default. This one, however, when you start playing it, and it took me 8 tries to win, and that's not uncommon, you'll feel a rhythm. You'll get the game. You'll get the point of the game and the ways that you can work with this game that are unlike any other. So in summary, if there was a game I could compare this to, because it's not common to have a one-player only game in this vein. It's not like a war game or anything. This is like Friday by Friedman Freeze, a game in which you're trying to rescue Friday off of an island. Now, where Friday had you making choices against your life, you had 20 life, and you'd have to give that life up to compensate for bad luck you'd have until you grew stronger. Here, timing is the key. Here, you are giving up threat level, you are giving up concessions here and there to be able to continue the dance, to keep the tug of war going. Timing is key. New players will likely want to just empty their hands real fast, like any deck builder. Or a lot of them you're using and losing. Like you make the most of every hand. Here you don't have that. Here you have to choose how to balance or smooth out your hands in such a way that the timing of a particular event happening is as important as the fact that it actually ends up happening. To get the most out of every turn. This kind of turns the idea on its side for most games where you really are trying to max out your hand or get the optimal hand for a particular situation. Here, because you're cycling through your cards and each turn you want to try and set the stage to go back and forth. As an example, you'll probably not want to just shoot every reroll card that you have with every single other card you have to try to just get everything as low as possible, because then you've lost almost an entire follow-up turn. And it has a terror card, and that terror card will do some damage, and you could maybe put yourself in a position to not even be able to approach fixing some of that damage before the following turn. In advance, you want to plan, not too much, but somewhat. The ephemeral nature of your card hand means that you're going to have that disposable, consumable. I'm buying this card specifically for a point in time, and I know I'm going to have to buy it again, which is really, really odd at first until you understand, and then you kind of can grow accustomed to buying and rebuying cards that fit where you're trying to go 1 or 2 turns ahead. Timing is the game. And like Friday, where it's about life management, this is about time management and timing management. Will I play this over Friday? The other game I'm comparing it to, I will play them side by side. They both take about 15 minutes. I care about the survival of my stranded castaway in Friday, and I care about the lives that can be saved here with Hostage Negotiator. It's a game I'd recommend to anyone who, in 15 or 20 minutes, occasionally wants to try to take on a real challenge with a real interesting twist on how to keep the negotiations going and wind up with a victory at least some of the time. For as brutal of a game as it is still a markedly good solo game, of which there are not an entire wealth out there. So, Hostage Negotiator, put it on your list if you feel compelled, or if any of the examples I showed you seem intriguing to you. Thanks again, and we'll see you on Harebrained Games the next time.